Hello, 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 beautiful people. Welcome to the Wealthy Trustee webinar. I'm super excited that you guys are here this evening. I have a lot planned for you for this evening. Tonight, we are going to be talking about how to create a trust and how to build wealth with that trust. We're going to be talking about asset protection. So if you want to know a lot of information about a trust, you have come to the right place. If you want to know how to protect your assets like your house, your cash, your cars, insurance policies, anything that you have that is considered an asset, then you are in the right place. So before we get started, I do have a short presentation for you all. And we'll go through that. And then after the presentation, I will answer any and all questions that you guys might have. But before we get started, I want to see where is everyone tuning in from. So you guys can come off mute. You can go and put it in the chat. Tell me where you tuning in from. I will let you guys know that I am in Atlanta, Georgia. So I see New Jersey, I see Chicago, Queens. Okay, I love it. Atlanta, Hot Atlanta. Okay. Brooklyn in the house. All right. I love it. I love it. So we are pretty much all over North Carolina. All right. The Cayman Islands. I love that. Okay. The Cayman Islands, London, New York. I love it. Florida. I love Florida. Okay. I was born and raised in Miami, Toronto. I love it. We are going to be having some fun here. Other parts of Georgia. So this is amazing because we are all spreaded all over the globe and we get to come together this evening and learn about asset protection and how to build wealth the right way so that we can leave a legacy. So, leaving a legacy is super important. And a lot of people think that leaving a legacy is about the house or the car that you leave behind, but it's more than that, right? It is that foundation. It is a set of instructions, right? It's principles, morals. It is a lot that you need to leave behind, right? When it comes to that legacy. And so, a trust can actually help you do that. So if you are intentional about establishing that legacy and having a solid foundation, then you need to be able to get structured the right way and establish, a trust. So we are going to dive in. Now, let me introduce myself. My name is Christina Yvette. I'm the founder of 7 Ways to Wealth. So we are a financial literacy firm and we just help people when it comes to learning about structure, when it comes to learning about taxes, asset protection. So, all things dealing with those. So, I am a licensed financial professional and a licensed real estate professional. But I have been a trustee for 11 years. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you from a standpoint of trusteeship. So, I am not an attorney, I'm not a CPA. I am a trustee. I have been operating a trust for the last 11 years, and I'm going to teach you how to become a trustee. Okay. So without further ado, I'm going to dive into the slides. But what I will tell you is the way that I became a trustee was by way of real estate. And this was many years ago. So 11 years ago, I was actually a registered nurse and I was working paycheck to paycheck. And I was extremely frustrated, right? Because I had a 1 year old baby that I could not take care of. And my baby was being raised by my mom while I was working 6 and 7 days, 12-hour shifts in the hospital. And the moment that I realized that I was spending more time in the hospital with my patients and my coworkers than I was at home with my baby, I said, there has to be something that I can do in order to make more money so that I don't have to work 6 and 7 days a week, right? Every single time that I got paid, I had to go and get a cash advance. So I was literally in the rat race and it was so frustrating for me. So one day I was driving to work and this guy named Dan Merrill, he's like, "Do you want to learn how to flip houses?" And I'm driving to work. I'm like, "Yeah, I want to learn how to flip houses." So he's like, "Come to my seminar this weekend." I paid $200. I went to the seminar and I learned so much in those 3 days about real estate that I've never known in my entire life. And so 6 months after that seminar, it led me into establishing my LLC and buying my first property. And that first property was a little 2 bedroom, 1 bath, beat up house in Miami. And thank God that I was actually able to have a lender. So it was a private money lender, and so this company put up 100% of the money, right? This house, I bought it for $89,000. So they put up 100% of the money. And so that the owner, I asked him, I'm like, "Will you mentor me?" And he's like, "Absolutely, I'll mentor you." And so this is a gentleman that was worth $200 million, had a bunch of real estate all over the United States. So he's like, "Christina, the first thing that you need to do is you need to put that property into a trust." And I'm 25 years old. I don't know what a trust is. I'm looking at him like he has 10 eyes. And I'm like, "What is a trust?" And he begins to tell me that the way that I bought the property was wrong because I bought it with an LLC. And I was like, "Okay, well, I need to do things the right way." So I learned how to set up a trust and I transferred that property from the LLC into the trust. And that was due to asset protection. Why? Because one, I was 25 years old. I never owned any property in my life. And that property was being renovated so that I could flip it. So there's contractors coming in and out. Anyone could have been injured. They could have slipped on the job. And it just takes one accident for me to lose it all. And so I wasn't willing to take that chance. So I protected the property. I put it into a trust and I ended up selling the property for $235,000. So when I sold that property for $235,000, I realized that I just made 6 figures off of one property. And that changed the trajectory of my entire life. So my entire life changed because one, I got a mentor. Two, I set up a trust. Three, I was able to learn the ins and outs of real estate and I flipped that property. And I knew from that point on that real estate was my way of getting out of the hospital. And so I gave myself a deadline and I said, "I'm going to be out of here in like the next 10 years." And I was able to retire myself at 31 years old, never to have to work for anyone again. And I can just comfortably live off of my real estate portfolio. So this was only possible because I decided to set up a trust and build wealth with the trust and have the trust acquire real estate. So I'm going to show you that blueprint tonight so that you are able to implement the same thing that I did back then. So let me go ahead and share my screen. So let's first talk about what an actual trust is, okay? Because a lot of people, they do not know what a trust is, okay? So a trust is an entity. It is a living, breathing entity, just like how you are a living, breathing entity, just like how I am a living, breathing entity. So a trust can do anything and everything that you can do as a natural person, okay? So if you can buy a house, a trust can buy a house. If you can buy a car, a trust can buy a car. If you can build credit, a trust can build credit. If you could write a book, a trust can write a book, okay? Now, how does this entity come into existence? It comes into existence by way of a contract, which means that you have to establish a contract, and that contract is then going to, once it's legalized, it becomes a entity, okay? So there's several different parts to the contract. The only two parts that I want you to know of right now is the declaration and the bylaws. So the entire agreement is called an indenture, and the declaration is where you're declaring what it is and what it is not. So you're declaring, hey, in this contract, I am not setting up an LLC, an LLP, a joint venture, or any of those other types of contracts. In this contract, I am setting up a trust entity, right? And then you have your bylaws, which are the terms and conditions that are set forth where the trustee is able to carry out those terms and conditions. So those are the rules and regulations of how you want the trust to be operated, okay? So that is what a trust entity is. And a lot of you guys, you hear the term, trust fund, right? And so that's what we're talking about. We're talking about this type of entity. So now that you know that it is an entity, what I want you to know is that there are many different parties involved, okay? So it is a contract and there's three parties involved. You have a grantor, a trustee, and a beneficiary. The grantor is the creator of the trust. That is the individual who is going to establish the trust with the trustee for the benefit of somebody else. That somebody else is the beneficiary, okay? So the grantor is going to place the first thing that has intrinsic value into the trust, meaning that you want to put some type of asset into it. It could be $100, it could be a property or anything. And so the grantor is that individual. Now, the next party involved is the trustee. The trustee is the controller of the trust, the individual that is going to be managing the trust, managing the assets that are inside of the trust, operating the trust on a day-to-day basis. So they're doing all the hiring, the firing, they're having full control over the money that's inside of the trust. And then you have the beneficiaries, okay? So the trustees are operating the trust for the benefit of the beneficiaries. The beneficiaries are the inheritors of the trust. Those are the individuals that are going to inherit the assets that have been placed inside of the trust. So in the meantime, what they do is they're going to be receiving distributions and gifts until that trust expires or is terminated, okay? So a trust can exist for many years. Usually we say anywhere between 1 to 100 years, okay? And so once that trust expires, then all of those assets go to the beneficiaries, okay? So now there's several different types of trust. There's hundreds of different types of trust. What I want to do is I want to give you a few categories that every single trust falls under. So the first category that I want to give you is express versus implied. So an express trust is a written trust where you actually have that physical contract, okay? So it's in black and white, it's on paper, you're going to physically sign it, you can touch it, you can feel it, and you have possession over it. Versus an implied trust where there was a verbal agreement and it just stayed verbal. It was never expressed in writing. So that means that the meeting happened and the trustee just automatically knows what to do, right? It automatically remembers those bylaws, okay? Now, the second category that I want to tell you guys about is simple versus complex. So a simple trust is shorter in nature, and it's where the trustee is required to distribute all the money that's inside of the trust. So that trust cannot hold trust funds. It can't hold money. And the next type is a complex trust. So with the complex trust, it is a trust that's longer in nature, which means that it has more provisions. So with that type of trust, the trustee is not required to distribute all of the trust funds. So that means that that type of trust can hold money inside of the trust bank account. And that's going to be in order to invest in assets and things of that nature. Now, the next category that I want to give you guys is discretionary versus non-discretionary. So a discretionary trust is where the trustee has full discretion to be able to make decisions for the trust that are not embedded inside of the contract. Meaning that when you have a contract, you have to carry out everything that's inside of the contract. But with a discretionary trust, if the trust, for example, doesn't say anything about crypto, if it's discretionary, that means that you're still able to make investments in crypto, right? Versus non-discretionary. So non-discretionary means that you are not able to carry out any task or anything for the trust that is not spelled out inside of that contract. So that means that the trustee is actually limited to what the terms and conditions are set forth in the bylaws. Now, the next category that I want to give you is statutory versus non-statutory. So every single state has its own laws, and those are state statutes and codes. So with a statutory trust, what we're saying is that those state statutes and codes are embedded inside of the contract, meaning that they are listed inside of your trust agreement. So because they're listed inside of the trust agreement, your trust is limited to where it can only be operated in that one state. and it's required to be registered publicly in that one state. So you have a lot of limitations with a statutory trust versus non-statutory. So a non-statutory trust is where you have no state statutes or codes inside of the contract. So because you don't have any state statutes and codes inside of the contract, that means that you're able to operate it in all 50 states, as well as all of the U.S. territories like Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. So it's also not required to be registered publicly, okay, which is a beautiful thing that you get to maintain that privacy. Now, the last category that I want to give you is revocable versus irrevocable. So when we are referring to irrevocability and revocability, we're referring to one party, and that one party is the grantor, okay? So when it comes to the grantor, let's talk about a revocable trust. With a revocable trust, the grantor is going to be the creator. The grantor is also going to serve as the trustee as well as the beneficiary. So remember, your trust is a three-party contract. So you are saying that that one person, which is the grantor, is going to serve as all three parties. They're going to serve as the creator, the controller, and the beneficiary. So because they serve as all three parties, this type of trust is actually seen as their alter ego because they're all three parties. So this means that this trust is pretty much a different version of them, okay? And so because it's not seen as separate from them, that type of trust will operate under the grantor Social Security, okay? So if that trust is operating under the grantor Social Security, then what is happening is if there's any creditors that are going after this type of trust, or going after the grantor, then they can actually go after the trust as well because the trust is using the grantor Social Security. So with a revocable trust, what happens is the grantor is able to make changes for the trust. The grantor is able to serve as all three parties, and the grantor is able to terminate the trust at any point in time, replace the trustees and beneficiaries, and they have a lot of power and a lot of control. Now, if that trust was to end up in court, then a judge can pierce through that trust and force the grantor to produce the trust in court, okay? And so then at that point in time, it becomes a part of the public records. Everyone knows all of the assets that you have inside of that trust, okay? So unfortunately, your assets are not protected with a revocable trust, okay? So now let's talk about the other type of trust, which is an irrevocable trust. So with an irrevocable trust, what that is that the grantor has what we call irrevocability. So the grantor is not able to have any control over the trust. They have no power over the trust. They cannot administer the trust. The grantor cannot serve in any other position, meaning they can't be the trustee, they can't be the beneficiary. The grantor cannot make any changes to the trust, cannot terminate the trust, cannot take back property that they placed into the trust, okay? So with this type of trust, the trust is actually seen as a separate entity and it's going to operate on its own, okay? So that means that it's going to have an EIN number instead of operating with the grantor Social Security. So because it's seen as a separate entity, your assets are fully protected because if someone is trying to go after the grantor, the trustee, they cannot come after the trust. So if the trust were to end up in court, they would not pierce through an irrevocable trust. So that means that you get to maintain privacy and protection. So let's talk about the different steps that you need to take in order to create a trust. So step one, you want to determine the type of trust that you want to create. Now, I just gave you a list of many different categories, right? And so what you want truly is asset protection. So you don't want to be utilizing a trust that can be pierced and a trust that is not going to fully protect your assets, okay? And so you want what we call a bulletproof trust that's actually going to hold up in court and actually protect your assets, okay? So the type of categories that that bulletproof trust should fall under is it should actually be express, meaning that it's in writing, it's on a contract, it's not verbal, okay? The next one is that it should be complex in nature, meaning that you can hold trust funds in there and the trustee can decide if they're going to distribute. Then it should be non-statutory. So that means you can operate in the entire US and all of the territories. That also means that it should be discretionary. So that means that you can make decisions that are not inside of the contract if you're the trustee. And lastly, it should be irrevocable, which means that it is fully protected and the grantor doesn't have any power and control, and it's not going to be penetrated. So with that being said, your trust should fall under those 5 categories, okay? Now let's move on to step 2. So in step 2, we're going to determine the type of trust, and we have to actually name it, okay? So after you've determined the type of trust, then you have to name the trust. And the one thing that I want you to know is that do not name the trust after yourself. This is the biggest mistake that I see a lot of people make. So if their name is John Smith, then they go and name the trust the John Smith Trust. That's the biggest mistake that people make, because you have to understand that you are setting up a trust for privacy purposes. You don't want anyone to know that you're associated with it and that you're associated with those assets, okay? So do not name it after yourself. And then the second thing is, do not have the word trust in the actual name as well. It's not required like an LLC or a corporation. So you want to have some form of obscurity for them to not even know that it is that type of entity. Now that you have decided on the name that you want to call the trust, right? Then what you're going to do is you're going to appoint the different parties. So you have to appoint a grantor, you have to appoint a trustee, you have to appoint a beneficiary, and you have to appoint a successor, okay? So the successor is a successor trustee. That is the individual that is going to take over for the trustee. So if you want to have full control over the trust, then you want to be the trustee of the trust, okay? Now you have to choose someone who's going to take over after you in the event that something happens to you, meaning that if you become incapacitated, if you decide that you want to resign, or if you transition, okay? Then you need to have that successor in place, because they're going to pick up where you left off. Now that you have the different parties involved, you need to actually establish that agreement, okay? That's what we call the trust indenture. Inside of the trust indenture, you have those bylaws that we spoke about. And the most important thing with those bylaws is for you to put yourself in the position to where you're controlling the money from the grave. So what does that look like? That looks like putting the right provisions inside of the contract. One of the provisions that I want you to think about is what we call spendthrift provisions. So spendthrift provisions are where you put those rules and regulations in place for the beneficiaries. So for example, you might put an age restriction to say that, hey, the beneficiary cannot receive distributions until they're 25 years old, right? Because if they're receiving $10,000 a month from the trust, right, a 2-year-old doesn't need $10,000 a month, but maybe a 25-year-old does, right? So you want to put that age restriction. You might want to put an education restriction to say that they have to take some type of budgeting or accounting, or they have to get a college degree, or they have to, start a business, something like that, right? So, and then you also want to put distribution restrictions to tell them what they can and cannot spend the money on. So you can say, hey, you have to spend the money on real estate, stocks, bonds, insurance policies, housing, right? You can't spend it on illicit drugs or gambling or lottery tickets or tobacco, right? So you get to actually have full control over those provisions, and the beneficiaries have to abide by that, right? This is what I'm talking about when I say that you want to leave a legacy. It's not about you leaving the house behind. It's about the set of instructions that you're putting inside of the trust agreement. That's the legacy that you're leaving, because we're creating generational wealth here. And so your descendants, they're going to be like, oh, look what grandma did. Look what grandpa did. Right. And so that's why this is so important. This is your foundation. Now let's move on to number 4. So in number 4, you are going to then notarize that contract, right? So that you're able to start operating. Okay. So once it's notarized, it's going to require 2 signatures. It's going to require the grantor signature, and it's going to require the trustee signature. Okay. So the notary is going to go ahead and witness those two signatures, put their seal. Once that seal is on the trust, you're able to start operating the trust. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to go and open up that trust bank account. Okay, that is what we call the trust fund. So whenever you hear that term trust fund, that's what we're referring to. We're referring to the bank account that house the funds that belong to the trust. Okay. So when you are ready to open up this trust fund, you can go to a bank, a credit union, you can go to a brokerage, or any financial institution that offers trust accounts. Not every single financial institution offers trust accounts, okay? Why? Because a trust is the most powerful entity in the entire world. And I'm going to say it again. A trust is the most powerful entity in the entire world. Okay? This is global. This is not just the US. This is not just your state. This is not just your city. So, when you are choosing a financial institution, right? The next thing that you want to do is you want to open up that bank account. And so you can open up a checking account, a savings account, a money market account. You can also open up a traditional brokerage account and what we call a cash management account. It's just like a checking account, but it's used for you to manage cash, okay? And so you're going to open up that account in the name of the trust, okay? You're going to identify yourself as the trustee. So there's two things that you need to bring with you. The first thing that you need to bring with you is the certificate of trust. That is proof of identity that the trust actually exists. So just like how you walk around with proof of identity, meaning that you have a state ID card that you're able to present at any point in time, the trust has to also do the same thing. If you're doing transactions for the trust, you have to provide a certificate of trust. It has the same thing that your ID has. It has the name of the trust. It has the 9-digit identification number. It has the address of the trust. It has who the trustees are, right? And so you need to provide that as well as that 9-digit number, which is the EIN, the employer identification number. We get that number for banking purposes, and it's very important for you to open up that trust account, because how else are you going to house trust funds? You got to house it in that bank account, okay? So now the next thing that you're going to do is once you open up this bank account, you need to fund the bank account, okay? You have to fund the trust. So you can fund it with the minimum if that's what you would like. Now, some of these banks and brokerage accounts and firms, their minimum is zero. Some of them, their minimum is $100. Some of them, their minimum is $500. Some is $1,000. Some is more than that, 3,000, 5,000. It depends on who you decide to establish a banking relationship with, okay? So now that you have funded the trust fund with, let's just say $1,000, now it's time for you to move on to the next phase. Now, the next phase in number 6, we're talking about transferring assets into the trust. This is the most important step that you are going to make. This is the step that I see people make the biggest mistake, because this is the step that they skip. This is the step that they never take. This is the step that they don't understand how important it is. So let me explain it. When you are transferring assets into the trust, the first thing that you need to do is you need to list those assets in the schedule of the trust. Okay, so there's a section in the trust that is called a schedule, and you have to list that asset, okay, correctly. That does not mean that that asset is owned by the trust just because you listed it on a piece of paper. You actually have to do a conveyance. You actually have to legally transfer that property or asset into the trust, right? Into the name of the trust. So for example, let's just say that we're talking about your primary residence, right? Well, you bought a house. When you bought a house, they gave you a deed, right, to the property. So let's just say that they give you a warranty deed, okay? So you have a warranty deed and it is in your personal name. You want to protect that house. So what you have to do is, after you have listed it in the schedule, you have to then prepare a new deed. and you have to transfer that old deed information into the new deed, meaning that you have to transfer that property from your personal name into the name of the trust. And then you have to record the new deed with the county recorder's office. And then it's going to represent and show on the public records that that house is owned by a trust. This is where people drop the ball. They never convey their properties, meaning the house, the car, the cash, the policies, all of their personal assets. They never do the transfer. They literally think, oh, I have a trust and I listed it in the paper, in the document. And all this time, a whole decade goes by and they're thinking that their house is in a trust. So do not make that mistake that I have seen thousands of people make. Let's move on. So, what can a trust actually protect you from? It can protect you from bankruptcies, divorce, foreclosure. It can protect you from heavy taxation. It can protect you from lawsuits. It can protect you from probate. So let's talk about a few of them. So the first one that I want to talk about is divorce, because a divorce is a transfer of wealth, okay? So sometimes when you have a divorce, one spouse will end up with nothing and the other spouse will end up with everything, right? Now, this is what I need you to know about a divorce, right? So you're obviously going to court, right? And so in this divorce, what happens is you have to go ahead and disclose all of your assets and all of your liabilities, okay? And these are all of the assets and liabilities that are in your personal name. Now, how a trust is going to protect you is because let's just say that you set up a trust and you transferred a house, you transferred $100,000, you transferred a car in there, right? Well, during this divorce, they cannot pull your trust into the divorce. Why? Because the trust is not the one getting a divorce. All right. The trust is a separate entity from you. So meaning that you are not the trust is not you. So the trust and anything that it owns cannot be pulled into your divorce. So everything that's inside of the trust is protected. Okay. Let's talk about heavy taxations, because a lot of us are giving away half of our income. We're giving it away to the IRS, right? Especially if we're in states like New York, which a bunch of you guys are, because I've seen it in the chat, right? And other states like California, you guys are giving away half of your income. So a lot of you don't even know that the IRS taxes you when you die. So there is something called a death tax. The IRS taxes you on your way out, okay? There is something called an inheritance tax, meaning that they want to take a piece of the pie from your children, right? So you have to think about those things, because the trust can protect you from both of those taxes. Now, the trust can also protect you from income tax too. So let's just say that you're a W-2 employee, right? Well, with a specific type of trust, the IRS will allow you to donate up to 60% of your salary into the trust, which means that you're only going to be taxed on 40% instead of the entire 100%, which is what you want, because you're going to be saving thousands of dollars that you can then put somewhere else, like maybe an asset, okay? So think about that, because asset protection is the number one reason why you want to set up a trust. And then privacy, right? So let's talk about lawsuits, because a lot of us, we live in the United States, right? And so the United States is a sue-friendly country. Like literally everyone wants to sue you, right? Your neighbor wants to sue you for sure, without a shadow of a doubt. Your neighbor wants to sue you. Your employer wants to sue you. Your employee wants to sue you. Your tenant, oh my God, that's it, you're done, right? Your tenants want to sue you. Your customers, your clients, they want to sue you, right? Literally, this country is rolling around with lawsuits, right? Each and every day, every single second of the day. And so you don't want to wait until you're getting sued to protect yourself from lawsuits, right? You're literally walking around here thinking that you're not going to get sued. And that's the biggest mistake that you're making, because a lawsuit can come out of nowhere, and it can come, it can come out of nowhere instantly, right? And without you even expecting it. So you want to prepare. You want to be ready for the battle before the battle gets to your door, okay? So when it comes to a trust can protect you from a lawsuit. Let's just say that you are a business owner, right? And a lot of you guys are business owners, right? You guys are operating LLCs, corporations, all kind of stuff. So let's just say that you are a business owner, right? For example, let me ask you a question. What does LLC stand for? Let me hear you guys tell me, what does LLC stand for? You guys can come off mute.
Limited liability corporation.
Limited liability corporation.
Exactly. Yes. So the C stands for company. So limited liability company, right? So now, if the company has limited liability, let me ask you this. If the company has limited liability, who do you think has another part of that liability? Because the company's liability is limited.
The owner of the company.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you saying that. Exactly. So the owner of the company has the other half of that liability in the event that something happens to that company, right? And so let's just say that you are operating an LLC, right? So if you're operating an LLC, right, a lot of people, this is how you have set up your LLCs, right? You set up your LLC to where you are the owner of the LLC. You do not want to be the owner of the LLC, because you are going to be doing yourself a disservice by you being the owner. Okay, that is absolutely dangerous. You need to have an entity in between you and the LLC. So that means that what you really want is for that LLC, and a lot of you guys, you need to think about it this way, okay? Your LLC is an asset. You need to protect that asset, right? The last time that I checked, your business is the one that's generating revenue, that's keeping the lights on, right? That's providing for your family, that's putting food on the table. So you need to be able to protect that asset at all costs, right? And so you do not want to directly own that asset in your personal name. It goes back to every single other asset, right? They can shut it down at any point in time if you didn't know, right? Because that is in what we call a statutory entity. You went to the state in order to set up that entity. They could shut it down at any point in time. So you want that entity to be owned by a trust, because then what's going to happen? Come off mute, let me know. The trust is going to be liable for that LLC if anything happens. So let me give you an example. Let's just say that you are running a business and you're selling candles, right? And so you sell a candle, and this client, their house ends up burning down, right? And so the client is like, oh, I bought my candle from you, and now my house burnt down, so I'm coming after you. It's just that simple, okay? You thought you were selling candles for $8, and now you got a $500,000 lawsuit on your hands, right? And so it's very easy for them to find you. Why? Because your LLC is a part of the public records. So you know that all they have to do is go down to the Secretary of State's website, put the name of your LLC, and all of your information shows up. Why? Because you're the owner, right? And so that's the biggest mistake that we have made, but that's how we were taught. Why? Because society taught us that. Why? Because an LLC is one of the most popular entities. I wonder why. So now what's happening is they know who to go after. So now they're going to serve you, right? And so now you have a whole lawsuit in your hands, and they're saying my house was worth $500,000. It burned down because of your candle. And so now you owe me $500,000. So now your LLC loses this court case, right? And so now you got a judgment for $500,000. So what are you going to do? Well, if the LLC can cover the judgment, then boom, they just took $500,000. But what if the LLC can't cover the judgment? Then what's going to happen? Well, what the judge can do is the judge can pierce through the corporate veil. So the corporate veil is that little bit of protection that you thought you had with your LLC. You thought you had this little tiny umbrella for a rainy day. And the judge is like, nope, we're piercing right through it. And if the judge pierces through the corporate veil, the judge goes after you. And if the judge goes after you, then that means that they can garnish your entire bank account that's in your personal name, garnish all of your wages if you get in W-2s and 1099s, and seize all of your assets, meaning the house that you live in with your children, gone. The car, gone. Jewelry, paintings, whatever. If you got a house, a boat, a plane, whatever, gone. Gone. Why? Because you're the owner of the LLC. So I'm here to tell you today that if you're structured that way, it's time to get restructured because you're not protected. You are a walking liability. So let me quickly show you something. 1 second here. Let's see.
Just a quick story.
Let me get back to the slides. There we go.
Just a quick story of why I'm here. I was sued. I lost everything. And when I say everything, I'm talking about a $700,000 house. I'm talking about 4 vehicles. I'm talking about my bank account. I'm talking about my life savings. I believed in having 6 months of expenses put up, saved up just in case anything happened, lost a career and stuff like that. All of that was gone. And there was no protection for me. Then I had my 3rd bout with cancer. I haven't had any income since 2020, since COVID. As I told you, I think yesterday, I've been looking for a way to protect myself because I have children that are going to depend on me. So I would encourage anyone that would listen to anything that has been taught and said by you, please, 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 if you work hard to gain assets, do whatever you can do to protect your assets. Why do you think they've hid this from us for so long? Why do you think they were the only ones that were saying trust fund babies? It was because they were the only ones who were privileged to know this, who was privy to this knowledge. Now we have it through Christina. And I thank you for your level of knowledge and for not being a gatekeeper and for giving us what we need to know in order to make this happen. So please, 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 if you endeavor to get anything in this world and to keep anything in this world, please, please, please protect it. Get your trusts. And I have no reason other than my knowledge and what I've been through. But the only reason I'm here is because I've been through it. So I would encourage anyone.
So do not wait until you are getting sued in order to protect yourself from a lawsuit, okay? So now let's talk about the next thing, right? So I have a question for you. And come off mute, because I don't want to be by myself over here, okay? So my question to you is, we're talking about this primary residence, right? So this is the house that you live in. This is the house where your children live, right? So if you didn't wake up tomorrow, how is that house going to be transferred from your name into the name of your children, your son, your daughter, your spouse, or whoever you need to transfer that property to? How is it going to happen if you don't wake up tomorrow?
They're going to do it.
Who is there? Who is
Them,
who is them? Who is they? Who is they?
the court system.
Probate.
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 Exactly. You guys are right. So they is the judge. So what's going to happen is you are going to leave it up to a judge. This judge does not know you. This judge does not know your son. This judge does not know your daughter. But yet you decided to leave it up to chance, to leave it up to a complete stranger to make the decision if your son or your daughter is going to receive your property. Because at the end of the day, that house right now today is in your personal name. And if something happens to you, it's still in your personal name. So who's going to sign on your behalf if you don't exist no more? So that's what is at play here. And that is the biggest risk that you can take right now. So you don't want that to happen because then it's going to end up in probate. So I'm here to tell you today, I'm an eyewitness. I'm here to tell you today that our children are losing their inheritance. They are literally losing it all. They're losing the money. They're losing the house. They're losing the car. They're losing everything. How many times have you seen it to where property is being auctioned by the county? How do you think this is happening? If you go on Zillow and Realtor.com, look at how many houses are for sale that are in probate. So this is what you don't want to happen. You don't want your family to go through what we call probate. So I'm going to break it down and I'm going to explain to you what that whole entire process looks like, okay? Now, when it comes to probate, probate is inevitable, okay? We're all going to go through probate unless we do one thing. And the one thing that we need to do is we need to set up a trust, because the trust is the only entity that can avoid probate. There is no other entity that can avoid probate. LLC, straight to probate. Corporation, straight to probate. A trust bypasses the entire court system. And that is the only way that your children is going to receive their inheritance, right? Now, a lot of people, they think, oh, I have a will, so I'm good enough. A will is not good enough. A will is what I call a wish list. A will is, like you said, right? It's your last will and testament. So what is that? That is your last wishes. That's literally a wish list, which is a set of instructions that is designed to be carried out in the probate court system. So it's designed to be carried out in court. That's what it's designed for. So you're automatically going to probate. A will is not an entity. A will cannot own anything. A will cannot own your house. A will cannot own your car, but a trust can. So I'm here to tell you that everything that's inside of your will, all of those provisions, all of those instructions can go into your trust, and then that will becomes obsolete. So please don't think that you are safe because you have a will. A will means you're automatically going to probate. So the only way to avoid probate is by you setting up a trust. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about probate. Okay, so let's just say that right now, as of today, you have a house, you have a car in your personal name, and you have a bank account with $250,000. And you did not wake up tomorrow. The first thing that's going to happen is the state where you're a resident, they're going to create an estate for you. Meaning that if you're a resident of Texas, Texas is going to have to create a living estate for a dead person. So Texas is going to have to create an estate for you. Why? Because you were irresponsible, because you did not do it yourself. So now Texas has to be responsible for your assets and has to create the estate. when you could have created the estate yourself. You could have created the estate now while you're living. But instead of getting your affairs in order, you let Texas do it for you. So now Texas has created the John Smith estate. And Texas has now went and transferred the house, the car, and that cash money that you have inside of your bank account in your personal name. Okay? So now what happens is your estate has to go straight into probate. So your estate has to be represented by a probate attorney. Your estate is going straight into probate. And so the first thing that happens is the judge is going to take care of all your liabilities, meaning that every single thing that you had that was debt that you owed, right? So let's talk about it. If you had credit card debt, that's a liability. If you had a personal loan, that's a liability. If you had a student loan, that's a liability, right? So those are creditors that are going to be coming after your estate. So the judge is going to pay off the credit cards. The judge is going to pay off the student loans from 30 years ago that you forgot all about. But one thing that a lot of people don't think about is the amount of medical bills that they're going to rack up at the end of life. You didn't know that you was going to be sitting in the ICU for 10 days. And now you have an ICU bill of $300,000. Right? And so a lot of people, they're like, oh, well, I have health insurance. No. Health insurance is not going to help you in this case, right? You have Medicare, you have Medicaid, you have the health insurance companies. They become creditors. They are going to come after your estate, right? They want to be paid back. They want what we call a reimbursement, right? They covered the $300,000 and now they want it back, and you have a living estate. So now they're going to go after it, right? And so if you don't have enough liquid cash that was sitting inside of your checking account or your savings account, if you don't have enough liquid cash to cover all of those liabilities, then what do you think is going to happen? What's going to happen is the judge is then going to liquidate your assets. The judge is going to begin to sell off the property, sell off the car, whatever needs to be liquidated in order to cover those expenses, right? In order to cover that debt. So now the judge decided to sell your house. And so now you have your children. You have to think about your children. Now you have your children that have to fight in the probate court system to keep mom's house, to keep dad's house. Sometimes they fight each other because they just can't get along, right? Because of this extreme stress of going through the court system, right? And so unfortunately, it's not up to your children. It's up to the judge, right? And so that's why I'm telling you that you don't want to put your children in this position. You are doing your children a disservice if you are going to allow them to go through the probate court system, right? It's going to be detrimental for them when you know very well that you can avoid this entire system, right? And so let's talk about what that looks like. So at the end of the day, what ends up happening in the probate court system is after the judge liquidates your property and pays off all of the debt and covers all of your liabilities, right? After the probate attorney takes their fees, after the court takes their fees, whatever is left over is what your children get. Your children get the leftovers. Now, this can be avoided. And the only way that you can avoid probate is by setting up a trust. That is the only entity in this earth that can do it, okay? So let's just say that you said to yourself, well, I want to get my affairs in order. Well, I'm ready to set up a trust, right? And so you decided that you wanted to leave a legacy. You decided that you wanted to protect their assets. You decided that you wanted your children to receive an inheritance and that you wanted for them to receive 100% everything, not a penny taken away. So you decided, I'm going to set up a trust now while I'm living. I'm not going to let the state of Texas do it. So you set up the trust. And then you transfer the assets. Remember, we spoke about this. You conveyed that property, your house, into the trust. That car, you transfer the title into the trust. That bank account, you set up a trust fund account and you transfer that $250,000 from your personal name that's attached to your social security number, and you transferred it into the trust. And guess what? You didn't wake up. You didn't wake up tomorrow. So then what happens? Well, you have to understand, you didn't wake up, but the trust still exists. The trust, you set it up and you set it up for 100 years. So that trust is going to exist and it's going to be living and breathing for the next 100 years. And when you set it up, you set up a succession plan to have your successor trustee pick up where you left off. So that person that you appointed in that position, they're literally going to pick up where you left off and they're going to continue to operate the trust. So now your children, they get to grieve in peace because they just lost the most important person in their life. And I know because I lost my mom. So they lost the most important person. They need time to grieve. Your successor is going to manage everything. The trust has $250,000 just sitting in the trust fund account. And there's a property that belongs to the trust that is probably going to be rented out and generating rental income. Your children are set. There's no problem here. Why? Because you decided to get properly structured, because you decided to build a foundation, because you decided, hey, I'm going to actually leave a legacy instead of just worrying about collecting cash and not knowing what happens to it after I die. So I know that this is a difficult conversation, but this is a conversation that we need to have because I am witnessing families lose generational wealth and assets every single day. And it's because of what? The smallest little thing, which is they just didn't know. They just didn't know that they could set up a trust. They didn't know that they could avoid probate. They didn't know that their children were going to have to struggle in the court system. They just didn't know. And we don't want to perish for the lack of knowledge. We want our children to receive an inheritance. So let's jump back into the slides here.
Just a quick.
All right, so let's talk about the wealth building formula. So this is the formula that you want to use to build generational wealth. And I have 3 pillars here. I have structure, I have credit, and I have invest. So let's talk about it. Now, when it comes to structure, if you do not have trust within your structure, then you need to get restructured. Everyone should have a for-profit and a nonprofit within their structure, okay? Now, when it comes to establishing trust, I have 3 different types of trust here that I highly recommend. I recommend a business trust, a family trust, and a tax-exempt trust. So let's break down each one so that you can better understand what you would use it for. So the first one is a business trust. So remember what we spoke about earlier for my entrepreneurs and business owners. We said that you do not want to have your LLC or your corporation in your personal name. You are playing a dangerous game for you to be the owner on paper of your company, you need to have a middle entity, right? An entity in between you and the LLC. Okay, that entity is going to have full liability over the LLC. So what you're going to do is you're going to establish a business trust. Now, this business trust, you can use it in two different ways. You can use it as a traditional business. So instead of you going out and opening up an LLC or a corporation, you're going to say, hey, I want to, do real estate, or I want to do e-commerce. Then you're going to establish a business trust and you're able to operate that business, right? Now, the next thing is that you can operate it that way where you offer a product and a service, or you can operate it the other way. The other way to operate it is as a holding company, meaning that it's going to be non-operational. It doesn't have any products or services. The only thing that it's going to be doing is it's going to be holding the LLC, which is an asset. Remember, that's where your bread and butter comes from. That's where you're going to be able to provide for your family. And so the business trust is going to own that LLC. Okay, that is what you want. So now let's just say that you are operating it as a holding company. Okay, then what's going to happen is if you have an LLC and that LLC is generating money, then you can distribute all the money from that LLC into the business trust, because the business trust is the owner. Okay, so let's just say that that LLC is generating $100,000. That $100,000 then can be distributed to the business trust. And now the business trust is holding the $100,000, okay? So you are done dealing with taxes with the LLC, and you're going to focus on the business trust. Now, the thing that I like about a trust is that you're going to spend the money first, and then you're going to be taxed on the leftovers. And I'm going to say that again, just in case the people in the back didn't catch that. You are going to spend the money first, and then you're going to be taxed on the leftovers, okay? And so the whole point is for you to not to have any leftovers. So this is what it looks like, because a trust, the tax bracket is between 10 and 37%. Okay, that's how you are taxed. So what's going to happen is you have $100,000 that's going into the trust, and so you want to be able to have tax deductions, which are going to be your operating expenses. So let's just say that your OPEX is $30,000, right? So $30,000 is going to be deducted and written off out of that $100,000. So you spent that money first, okay? And so now whatever's left over is what you're going to be taxed on. So $70,000 is left over. That's what you're going to be taxed on. And remember, I said that a trust is taxed anywhere between 10% and 37%. Well, we don't want to pay that. And so what we're going to do is we're going to use the next strategy for a trust that I absolutely love the most. And this is that a trust can distribute to the beneficiaries. So what do we mean by this? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to make the family trust the beneficiary of the business trust, and the business trust is able to distribute that $70,000 to the family trust. And now, because the business trust has distributed the $70,000, it does not have to pay taxes on that $70,000. Trusts do not have to pay taxes on distributions. So whatever goes out, you don't have to pay taxes on. So now remember, $100,000 came in. $30,000 was written off due to expenses, and $70,000 was distributed to the beneficiary. So now we literally have $0 left, which means that we have a 0% tax liability, which means that we pay 0 on 0. So now we're going to move on to the family trust. The family trust is where you're going to have your children be the beneficiaries, and where you're going to house your personal assets, okay? So nothing business related. So your personal assets are what? That's your house, that's your car, that's your crypto, that's your stocks, that's your bonds, that's your insurance policies, that's the fancy art that you have, that's the Rolex watch that you have. All of those things are considered either real property or personal property, and that goes inside of the family trust, okay? It has nothing to do with business. And so your children are the beneficiaries, because ultimately they're going to receive everything that's inside of that family trust once that trust expires. So now we have to understand that the business trust did a distribution of $70,000 into the family trust. That is what we're going to use to provide for the family. So what does providing for the family look like? Well, last time I checked, the kids have school expenses. We have grocery. We have gasoline. We have utility bills. We got to keep the lights on. We have a mortgage. We have taxes that we have to pay. So let's just say that it costs about $60,000 in order to provide for the family. So we are going to do what? We're going to spend the money first, and then we're taxed on the leftovers. So we're going to spend that $60,000, and that is going to be an operating expense for the trust, and that is going to be a way that we're able to write it off. Right, so 70,000 came in, and now we're going to write off 60,000 in operating expenses, and now we have $10,000 that's left. And so remember, we're going to be taxed on the $10,000, right? Whatever's left over. So you can easily pay 10% on $10,000, or there's another strategy. So we're not going to distribute to our children, right? Because then our children are going to get taxed. So what we're going to do is we're going to do what we call a contribution. A contribution is where you're going to donate to a charity of your choice. And we just so happen to set up a tax-exempt nonprofit trust. Why? Because we're philanthropists, because we have humanitarian endeavors, because there's things that we want to do out here in the world, right? We want to save people. We want to feed the homeless, right? We want to provide shelter. There's so much things, and we might as well do it internally. Okay, and so what's going to happen is that $10,000, you're going to donate it to your tax-exempt nonprofit trust, okay? And so that $10,000 is going to be written off as a charitable contribution. So now on the family trust level, you are at zero. Why? Because 60,000 was written off for operating expenses and 10,000 was a charitable contribution. You have no money left, okay? So that means that you pay 0 and 0. So now let's go to the tax-exempt trust. So this is where you are going to be doing all of your philanthropic endeavors, okay? So I know that you are very generous and you're a giver. And so you have to be doing it through a structure. That's why I told you it's highly important for you to be able to have a nonprofit and a for-profit within your organization, within your family, okay? So now with this charitable trust, you can run it like a charity. You can run it like a school. You can run it for education purposes. You can run it for religious purposes. So you decide how you want to structure it, okay? And so what's going to happen is it's going to automatically be exempt from federal income taxes, okay? And it could also qualify to be exempt from other forms of taxes like property taxes, like city taxes, county taxes, sales taxes, state taxes. There's all kinds of different forms of taxes, okay? It can qualify for those, but this specific type of entity, because of the separation between church and state, it is going to automatically be exempt from you having to file for a 501c3, okay? So you don't have to go through that scrutiny that a normal 501c3 has to go through. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna designate this trust as a 508c1a, which is a faith-based organization, and you're going to structure it the way that it needs to be structured so that you can do your charitable stuff, okay? Now, remember what I had told you earlier, which is that if you're a W-2 income earner, then the IRS will allow you on the W-2 side to be able to do a charitable contribution to your own trust, okay? So just keep that in mind, because once again, what you want to do is you want to be able to allocate those funds into other places, like what? Assets, okay? So now let's talk about the second structure. So the second pillar is about credit, right? So when we are talking about credit, we are talking about OPM, other people's money, right? Other people's money, like what? Like the bank's money, okay? So when it comes to the bank, right? The bank, let's just be honest, they're getting rich off of us. Why? Because every time that we get paid, every other week, what happens? Where does our money go? It goes straight into Wells Fargo, right? So you have to think about it this way. We are lending Wells Fargo our paycheck, right? And we live in a fractional reserve system, which means that that money, only a fraction of it actually needs to be held in the bank. So we're looking at a screen and we're seeing numbers, but those numbers are actually not there. So what is the bank doing? The bank is actually lending the money out for mortgages and student loans and car loans. And they're making what? They're making more money. They're charging high interest, right? And so we need to do what the bank is doing, which is what? Leveraging other people's money. So that's why we need to be able to build credit with our trust so that we can get these lines of credit and these credit cards so that we can leverage them, right? We're going to liquidate and leverage, and we're going to put it somewhere else. So where are we going to put it, right? You want to be able to leverage a second credit profile, which is business credit, because business credit, you can actually get higher lines of credit with business credit, right? So on the personal side, let's just say that they only give you 10,000. Well, on the business side, they're going to give you 100,000. Why? Because banks lend more money to entities versus to personal people like you and I. Okay, so that's why you want to be able to leverage your entity and leverage it the right way to where you're able to establish this type of business credit that's going to be established based on your EIN for your trust. Okay, so now let's just say that we qualify. We get a line of credit or a credit card for $50,000. What are we going to do? Well, it's time for us to acquire assets, okay? And these are specific assets for the trust, okay? All right, so let's talk about it. So the two assets that I want to talk about is the first one is the Index Universal Life Insurance Policy, and the second one is real estate. So these are my two favorite assets, okay? My trust owns these assets, and it's so highly important when you are trying to build generational wealth, okay? So the first one is the IUL policies. So a lot of people think that insurance is supposed to be used when they are dead. But in all actuality, insurance is supposed to be used when you are living. Okay? That's why it's called life insurance and it's not called death insurance. You're supposed to be using it while you are alive. Okay? So let's talk about it. Now, with this type of policy, so there's a lot of different policies. I'm talking about this type of policy. Okay? So with this type of policy, let's talk about the benefits. So one is tax-free. That means that they're not taxing you for the money that's going inside of the policy. Two, your money is protected, meaning that if somebody tries to sue you, they cannot take the money that's inside of your life insurance policy, okay? And it's protected from any losses. So every single dollar that goes into this policy, you will never lose it. Never, okay? Three is liquidity, meaning that whatever money that you put in, you can take it right back out, okay? Then the next thing is that it has a death benefit, meaning that if something happens to you, you are the insured, okay? That means that your life is insured. So my life is insured. If anything was to happen to me to where I did not wake up tomorrow, then guess what? Whoever I list as the beneficiary, they're going to get a fat check because the life insurance carrier is going to write them a check immediately for whatever that death benefit is, okay? So that is a sense of security, which is beautiful. Now, let's just say that there was something to happen to where you're working and anything happens. You can get a disability, you can get a chronic illness, you can get anything, cancer, whatever it is, right? Well, that death benefit, you can tap into it as soon as if you get any of these types of illnesses or disabilities, meaning that if you got $1 million policy, they're going to give you $900,000 now while you're living, right? So you don't have to stress about having to go back to work, right? So that is one of the living benefits, okay? Now let's talk about the ultimate component when it comes to this type of policy. It's the cash value, meaning that not only do you have a death benefit that's going to be paid out, you know, when that time comes, but you're also going to be accumulating cash while you're living. Okay, so there's something called cash value where every single time that you make your premium payments, a certain percentage of those payments, that money is going to go to cash accumulation. So now this is like
Is it locked?
this is like a a savings account on steroids, right? To where your money is now accumulating, okay? It's accumulating. So this is, let me give you an example. So let's just say that you are paying $100 a month, right? So if you're paying $100 a month, depending on the way that it's structured, and so every single policy is not the same. My policy is different from your policy, right? And with these types of policy, they have to be structured a certain kind of way. And I'm going to explain that to you because it's very important for you to know this, okay? So it has to be what we call properly structured or designed, okay? It has to be designed unique to what your goals are, okay? So let's just say that your monthly payment is $100, right? Well, if you structure it the right way, then you're paying $100 every single month, $100, $100, $100, right? And so if your cost of insurance is low, and if your death benefit is low, then that means that out of that $100, let's just say $20 is going to the insurance company, and that's the cost of insurance, right? And then $80 is going to your cash value, okay? So what is happening here? That means that your cash value is now accumulating $80, $80, $80, $80. It's compounding, right? It's just accumulating in there, right? Which is absolutely beautiful. So the next component is the icing on the cake. What do you think that is, right? Do you see the actual words in the name of the policy? So it says Index Universal Life, right? And so when we look at the word index, we are referring to an indice. The indice is referring to a section in the stock market, right? And so in the stock market, you have many different indices, right? You have the NASDAQ, you have the Dow Jones, you have the S&P 500, right? And so what's going to happen is the carrier is going to mirror the S&P 500 or an indice in the stock market. And they're going to give you that compound interest, okay? So they're going to give you that interest. So every single carrier is different. So you got to work with the right carriers, right? And so when it comes to this type of policy, your money is absolutely protected. Why? Because it has what we call a floor and a ceiling, okay? So that means that, let's just say you have $10,000 sitting inside of your cash value, right? Well, if the S&P 500 is doing 10%, then guess what the carrier is going to do? Because the carrier is mirroring the S&P 500 and your cash value gets to mirror that, then the carrier is going to give you 10% interest on your cash value, on that $10,000. So that $10,000 is just going to make 10%, okay? Now, remember I told you there's a floor and a ceiling. So that means that the most you can make, let's just say, is 12%, right? And the least you can make, let's just say, is 0.25, right? So what we mean is that on an up market, let's just say the S&P 500 is doing 20%. Well, you're only going to get 12, and that other 8% stays with the carrier. But let's just say that the market crash. Well, you're not even going to lose 1 penny. You're actually going to make money. You're going to make 0.25 because that's your floor. That's the lowest that you can make in a down market. So your money is protected 100%, okay? These companies have been around for hundreds of years and they are heavily regulated. So majority of your wealth should be sitting inside of your life insurance policies. This is where you are going to pour money into your policies, right? And it's going to accumulate cash. That cash is going to be working for you. That cash is going to be earning compound interest. Okay, so not only is it accumulating, it's earning compound interest. It's earning 10%, 11%, 12%, right? Which is what you want, because you want to put your money in places where it's working for you. There's no way for you to retire, and especially at a young age, if you are not intentional about having your money work for you. You do not have to work for money. So majority of your money and your wealth should be sitting inside of these policies. Remember what I told you 2 seconds ago. I said that you need to do what the bank is doing. How is the bank getting rich, right? The bank is using other people's money, but what asset is the bank holding? Do you know that the number one asset that the bank has is life insurance policies. That's where the bank holds all of its money. Okay, it's playing a totally different game. And so look it up. It's called BOLI, BOLI, bank-owned life insurance. Okay, look it up. Everything that I have shared with you this evening, I need you to do your own research, do your own due diligence. Don't just take my word for it. I'm a stranger. You don't know me, right? So go ahead and verify. So that is where majority of your money should be going. Now, how does this tie into the trust, right? Well, the trust is going to be the owner of your life insurance policy. You are going to be the insured because you're the living person. The trust is going to be the payer of those premiums every single month. That $100, boom, for the trust, right? Comes straight out of the trust. Remember that that is a expense, an operating expense for the trust, and we get to write it off. Why? Because it's owned by the trust. Remember what I told you? If you have assets, you need to legally transfer those assets. Your life insurance policy is an asset. That asset needs to be directly owned by the trust, not by you. If your life insurance policy is owned by you, you're already doing it wrong. You got the game twisted. And I'm here to tell you that you need to be doing it the right way. Okay, so it's time to get restructured. So now the trust is going to be the beneficiary. So meaning that if anything were to happen to you, that money, let's just say it's $1 million, because I like to use that number, that $1 million needs to go straight to the trust fund. Okay, so that is the way that you want it to be structured. Okay, so remember, all the money that you're putting inside of your life insurance policy is going to work. Okay, you need to put your money in places where it's going to work each and every day. It's going to go out, it's going to clock in, it's going to bring back friends, it's going to bring back every dollar, it's bringing back 10 cents, 15 cents, 20 cents. Okay, that's the only way that we're going to be able to get out of the rat race. Because the way that society has brought us up, they have seriously institutionalized us, right? Because what did they teach us? They taught us that we have to go to a concrete box Monday through Friday from 9 to 5. We have the weekends off. And after having the weekends off, we have to do this vicious cycle all over again. They taught you that from kindergarten all the way to high school, and then even in college, and then boom, as soon as you get a job and you go into your career. It's the same vicious cycle. You only get the weekends to yourself. Your Monday through Friday, it belongs to us. And what is it that society has designed for you? What do they want you to do? Well, they want you to be able to work for 40 hours every single week. They want you to be able to work for 40 years, right? And work until you're 65. And then what happens when you're 65? They want you to depend on the government for Social Security, and that is your retirement plan, and that is your livelihood. Do you know how many people have gotten trapped into this cycle? I don't want that to be you. So I'm here to tell you that we have to unlearn and we have to undo what has happened, okay? That institutionalization, right, is going to take a mindset shift. And this call is the beginning of that mindset shift. Okay, because I want you to think about wealth creation. I want you to think about building wealth for generations and generations. You cannot be walking around here lying in society talking about you're building generational wealth just because you're generating a paycheck, just because you're making money. Making money is not generational wealth, okay? It has to be a different strategy, okay? And so I'm here to tell you that you can retire at a young age and that you do not have to work for money. You do not have to trade your time for money, okay? When I realized this, it set me free. So I remember the day that I decided I am going to retire at a young age. I am not going to wait until I'm 65. I am not going to depend on Social Security. I remember that day. Let me tell you about it. I remember was working as a nurse. And at this time, I think I was like 24 years old. So one day at work at the hospital, I had a coworker and her name is Audrey. And so Miss Audrey was 65 years old. And on that day, she was exhausted. Exhausted, exhausted, exhausted. And I told her, so I was actually, because I'm young, I'm 24. So I'm like ripping and running the hallways like a robot, okay? And so I end up taking care of all of my patients, 6 and 7 of them, and I took care of all of her patients, right? And so in the middle of the day, I asked her, I said, Miss Audrey, when are you going to retire? Because you're 65 and you have been a nurse for 40 years. And I'm telling you, this is her story. She was a registered nurse for 40 years. She was 65 years old. I said, you made it. Like you were a nurse for 40 years. You're 65. When are you going to retire? She said, Christina, I'm not ready to retire. And I said, why not? And she said, I'm going to wait until I'm 67 and a half because then Social Security is going to give me an extra $300. And I looked at her and I was absolutely devastated. And I said, Miss Audrey, you're going to work for an extra 2.5 years for $300 more a month? And she said, yes, Christina, I'm not ready to retire. And I said, okay. And it was at that moment, when you have very pivotal moments in your life that they either knock you down, they slap you on the side of the face, or they change the trajectory of your entire life. That moment changed the trajectory of my entire life. I made the decision right there. I said, I am not going to be Miss Audrey. I said, I am not going to work as a nurse for 40 years. I am not going to wait until I'm 65 years old to retire. I'm getting out of this. I'm going to give myself 10 years to get out of working, to get out of my career, to get out of nursing. I told myself that day, I'm going to give myself 10 years. That day, Miss Audrey was leaving the parking lot and she hit the tree right in front of the emergency room and she died on impact. Miss Audrey never made it home that day. Miss Audrey never made it to 67 and a half. Miss Audrey never made it to collect one Social Security check that she worked 40 years contributing into the system. That changed my entire life. And it put me in a position where I said, I have to do things differently. And I thank God that God put me in that position because I was able to retire myself in 8 years. I didn't even make it to 10. I retired myself from my nursing career at 31 years old, and I only worked in that career for 8 years. Why? Because I was intentional. Why? Because I decided, hey, I need a mentor. Hey, I need to buy real estate. Hey, I need to invest. Hey, I need to go ahead and set up a trust. Why? Because I had a 1-year-old baby that needed me and I could not take care of him because I was working in the hospital for 6 and 7 days, 12 hours, living paycheck to paycheck. So you have to make that decision. You are literally one decision away, but you have to be intentional. This is not easy. Nothing is easy. Do you think you're going to get rich quick? No. You have to be intentional. You have to be strategic because this is a foundation that you're building. Are you going to build a house on a soft foundation, or are you going to take your time and build a solid foundation so that that house can withstand anything that comes at it? That is what structure is. That's why I keep using the word structure, because that is what you're building. You're building the foundation for your structure. So I don't want you to wait until you're 65, and I don't want you to depend on Social Security. Let's talk about real estate. Real estate is another way that you're able to build wealth using a trust. The trust is going to be the owner of the real estate. The trust is able to get a mortgage. The trust is able to get a home equity line of credit. So the strategy that you're going to use is the following, right? So you're going to be able to purchase real estate, and you are going to use what we call a DSCR. That's a debt service coverage ratio loan. Write it down. So with this type of loan, it's only for entities. And with this type of loan, those lenders will lend you up to 80% of the purchase price. So now you're going to get this type of loan and you're going to get, let's just say 80%, okay? And you're going to buy multifamily, right? Buy a triplex, buy a fourplex, right? Buy something to where you have one roof and multiple doors, okay? So let's just say you're buying a triplex, right? So this DSCR is going to give you 80%. So now you need to go find the other 20%, right? And remember, you are able to put yourself in a position to where you can purchase real estate zero down, right? You don't have to use your own money. I keep saying this, and I'm going to keep saying it until my face is blue. OPM, other people's money. Use the bank's money. So now how are we going to use the bank's money for the other 20%? Well, remember, you were intentional about building business credit. And so now that you built business credit, they gave you a line of credit. Let's just say that they gave you a credit card for $50,000. What you're going to do is you're going to liquidate that credit card, okay? So now that you're liquidating that credit card, that liquid cash goes straight into your bank account. And so the first thing that you're going to do with that $50,000 that just hit your bank account is you're not going to go straight into real estate. You're going to park that money and you're going to put yourself in a position to where you're going to pay yourself first. So that $50,000 is going to go straight into your index universal life insurance policy. Your cash value is going to go up, let's just say by 50,000. It could be 49, right? So let's just say it goes up by 50,000, right? So now you have $50,000 in your cash value. Remember that money is earning compound interest, right? You can make up to 12% of growth in interest in that vehicle, right? And so now you just park the $50,000 inside of the cash value, okay? And let's just say that the market is doing 11%, boom, that's what you're getting, 11%, okay? So now that $50,000 is working for you and it's going out and it's making friends and it's bringing back friends and it is compounding, right? It's doubling, it's tripling, it's quadrupling, okay? So now you have to remember that you have to utilize that money, right? Because there's a down payment for real estate. You got a deal on the table. So what you're going to do is you're going to request a policy loan. You're going to contact the carrier and you're going to say, hey, I would like to borrow $50,000, right? And so the carrier, they are going to look at your cash value because you have to understand that your IUL policy is an asset and that the cash that you have sitting inside of your cash value, they use it as collateral. They're like, okay, yeah, he has $50,000 sitting inside of his cash value, so we'll give him a policy loan, right? And so then they decide, yes, that they're going to give you a policy loan, right? And so now they just are going to deposit $50,000. It could be a little bit less, right? Every single carrier is different. Let's just say it's 49. So they're like, hey, we're going to loan you $49,000. They just deposited $49,000 right back into your bank account, okay? which is a beautiful thing because your 50,000 is still sitting inside of your cash value, earning compound interest as if you never touched it. The 49,000 that you just got direct deposited from the carrier, that is their reserves. That is their money that they just issued a loan to you. Okay, now this loan does not need to be paid back. Why? Because you have a death benefit on your insurance policy. So if you don't pay back the $49,000, then guess what? They're going to take it out of your death benefit when you transition, okay? So now what you're going to do is you're going to go to the closing table, okay? And so now you have the DSCR loan, plus you have the 49K. You just bought this triplex, zero down. You did not use any of your own money, okay? You used the bank's money, you used the lender's money, okay? So now you have that $50,000 that's working for you in two places. It's working for you inside of your IUL policy, and it's working for you inside of the real estate. So now that you have purchased the real estate, it's the first of the month. And so you are now collecting, okay, Mr. Landlord? And so you're going to collect $2,000 from each door, okay? So that's $6,000, right? And so this $6,000, let me ask you guys, okay? This is a quiz. Let's see who gets it. So that's $6,000 that you just collected on the first of the month. Where is it going to go?
It's going into the trust.
Into the insurance policy.
Correct. It's going into the insurance policy because you have to put yourself in a position to where you are paying yourself first. Okay, that is where you want your money to be instead of you paying everybody else first. So we have been so programmed into thinking that we have to pay everybody first. That's why I'm telling you, it's taking a mindset shift. You have to be able to change your thought process, right? Especially if you want to be successful in leaving generational wealth, right? So what does that look like, right? Well, that looks like this, right? Where a lot of us, when we get paid on Friday, we pay the utilities, the rent, the mortgage, the gas, the groceries. We pay everybody else, right? When instead we need to do it the other way around. When we get paid, right? So meaning that we just got paid rental income. Where is it going to go first? It's going to go straight into the index universal life insurance policies. Okay, so it's going to go straight into that cash value. That cash value is going to go up by close to 6,000. Okay, not exactly 6,000, close to 6,000. Okay, and so now what are we going to do? That 6,000 is going to be working for us. It's going to be earning compound interest, right? But yet we do have to pay a mortgage, right? And so we're going to request a policy loan, right? So our 6,000 is going to be inside of our cash value, earning interest, earning compound interest as if we never touched it. Then we're going to get a policy loan in order to cover the mortgage, the credit card, and then whatever is left over is going to sit inside of our trust so that we can flip it into the next asset. Okay, so that's extremely powerful because then what's going to happen is we are going to rinse and repeat. Right? We're going to do this over and over and over again until the trust is able to retire us, right? This is your retirement plan. You set up a trust, you get properly structured. The trust acquires assets like policies and real estate and crypto and stocks, index funds, things like that, right? And those things are appreciating. They're generating income. They are what we call income producing assets. That is the formula. So this formula that I just shared with you, all you have to do is rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. Do it over and over and over again, right? So it's extremely powerful. So let's dive right back in. All right, so you want to put yourself in a position to where you own nothing but control everything. And I'm going to say it again because it's super powerful. You want to put yourself in a position to where you own nothing, but you control everything. So that is what we call, that is like the true definition of what we call a stewardship, right? And so stewardship is where you are a good steward of the assets, right? Where you make sure that they are well taken care of and that they reach the next generation versus ownership. So a lot of us, we have been trained into this space of ownership, right? Where society has programmed us to think that we need to be the proud owner of everything, when in all actuality, we actually don't want to be the owner of anything on paper, right? And so we need to move away from ownership and we need to move towards stewardship, because this is what ownership looks like, right? You have to understand that this house that you live in, that's your primary residence, right? And remember what we said. If you don't wake up tomorrow, that house is still going to be there. So in all actuality, was it the ownership that you was really after, or was it control? So if you really sit here and think about it, what you truly, 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 truly desire and want is you want to be able to control that asset while you are alive. And that is what a trust can do, because the property is going to be owned by a trust. You're the trustee. You're going to control the trust, which means that you control the assets that are inside of the trust, which means that you have full control over that property. If you really think about it, that's what you truly want. But society has trained you and brainwashed you into thinking the contrary, right? And so we need to move away from that thinking, because you have to understand, right? Society wants you to own everything because they want you to use your name and your social for everything. If you want to go to school, name and social. If you want a job, name and social. If you want to buy a house, name and social. Why? Because it's a tracking system. They want to know how much is he making on his W-2? What properties does he own, right? They want to know everything. And so that's why they want you to use your name and your social for everything. But today, we're done with that, right? Because we actually want to transfer our wealth the right way. The way that you're going to transfer your wealth is by utilizing trust certificate units, TCUs. So you know how stock certificates represents ownership in a corporation? Well, TCUs, trust certificates, represents beneficial interest in a trust. That is how you're going to transfer wealth. Your beneficiaries are going to be issued TCUs. So let's just say that I'm one of your beneficiaries and you give me 25 TCUs. That means that I have 25% of beneficial interest. If this trust is worth $1 million, like we say it is, then guess what? My beneficial interest is equivalent to $250,000, right? And so now I'm one of your beneficiaries. I have TCUs, right? And when I transition, my TCUs go to my children. When they transition, their TCUs go to their children. That is how you're going to ensure that the wealth actually reaches the second and third and fourth generation. Because I'm here to tell you that 90% of the wealth is lost by the second and third generation. Why? Because individuals like you guys are not using the right tools. The tools are what? What are the tools? What are the tools in order for us to be able to preserve our wealth? What are the tools in order for us to be able to actually establish generational wealth? There's two tools. The tools are a trust and life insurance policies. This is the way that it works when you want to preserve wealth, okay? So every single trust has trustees, beneficiaries, and future beneficiaries. Those future beneficiaries, we call them trust fund babies, okay? So trust fund babies are actually a very good thing, right? And so we've seen it to where famous families, right? To where they losing the wealth in their lifetime, or it doesn't even reach the second generation, right? And so we don't want to do it that way. We want to do it the right way. And so remember, the trust has the trustees, the beneficiaries, and the future beneficiaries. Now, what the trust is going to do is the trust is going to take out a policy on all of those individuals associated with the trust. meaning that the trust is going to take out a life insurance policy on the trustee, which is you. The trust is going to take out the life insurance policy on the beneficiaries, which are your children. The trust is going to take out the life insurance policy on your grandchildren or the future beneficiaries, right? So let's just say that a baby is born into the trust organization. So your kid just had a kid, right? So this baby, when that baby is 15 days old, the trustee is going to take out a life insurance policy on that baby. You never know what's going to happen, right? So as early as 15 days old, you want that trust fund baby to have a policy. And then guess what? Let's just say the trust is paying $100 premiums, right? So that means that the $100 is going into that policy every single month, $100, $100, $100, $100, right? And so now what's happening? Well, that 15-day-old baby, right? We just set up an index universal life insurance policy. So we know that that $100 is accumulating and it's earning compound interest. It's working, okay? And so now this trust fund baby is now 18 years old. So what's happening when the trust fund baby is 18? Well, last time I checked, they're going to college and they need a new set of Hot Wheels. So if they need a new set of Hot Wheels, then they can definitely go down to the dealership. They can pull their credit. They can get into a high interest auto loan and they can pay $1,000 a month for a $30,000 car. Or because they are a beneficiary of a trust, because they are a trust fund baby, which I'm telling you is a good thing, they can actually come to the trust and they can request a loan. So they can contact the trustee and request a loan for $30,000. So that trustee is then going to write a check for $30,000, hand it over to the trust fund baby. They're going to go buy their car cash. But remember, spendthrift provisions, meaning that we need rules and regulations of how they're going to spend this money, right? So now we're going to tell them, hey, instead of you spending $1,000 at the dealership every single month, you're going to pay the trust $300, right? And so now the trust fund baby is paying the trust $300 every single month, right? That's showing them financial responsibility, right? But let's just say that this trust fund baby decides that they want to default. And they're like, I don't want to pay the trust $300 a month, right? So what's going to happen is they default. Well, it is absolutely okay that the trust fund baby defaulted. One, they're not eligible for any future loans, right? So they can't come to the trust for anything else, right? But that $30,000 doesn't need to be paid back because the money did not originate from the trust. The money originated from the life insurance policy that was placed on that trust fund baby. Remember, that policy was placed on that trust fund baby when that trust fund baby was 15 days old. We're talking about 18 years of compounding. Do you know how much money is sitting inside of cash value? So that's where that $30,000 came from. And remember, we do not have to pay back policy loans because it's automatically going to be deducted from the death benefit. So you mean to tell me that when that trust fund baby expires, then that $5 million death benefit is going to go straight to the trust minus the $30,000? That's exactly what I'm telling you. That is how you preserve wealth. That is how you conserve wealth. That is how you're going to ensure that wealth reaches the next generation and the next generation and the next generation. Because people are born and then they transition, okay? And so this is also a very natural cycle, okay? And the trust is going to outlive everyone. The trust is going to outlive the grantor, the trustees, and the trust fund babies, and the beneficiaries, okay? So if you really are following this, that $5 million that was the death benefit minus the $30,000 just went straight into the trust fund, and now the trust fund is replenished with $5 million. That is how you're going to ensure that your family is going to be good forever. That's the type of legacy that you want to live. You want to leave, you want to leave a set of instructions for them to know, hey, we're preserving wealth here. So when a trust fund baby is born into this organization, when they're 15 days old, you're going to take out a life insurance policy on them. So these are the books that I recommend. What Would the Rockefellers Do is a really good book that teaches you about the marriage between trust and life insurance. The Art of Passing the Buck, Volume 1 and 2 teaches you about trusteeship. Family Wealth teaches you about running your family like a business. Everyone should be running their family like a business, meaning that you are the CEO of your family, meaning that your spouse is the CFO of the family, meaning that your children are little secretaries running around. That's how you want to run your family. And then the Complete Book of Trust teaches you about the different types of trust. Remember, we said that there's hundreds of different types of trust. So you need to choose the right trust for you and for your family and for your business. That's why it's important for you to do your due diligence, okay?
Well, kudos to you all. Again, Christina, it's been a wonderful experience. I've been looking at your videos on YouTube for a while, and there are a number of people offering trust these days. They don't own anything, control everything. That is the sentiment. It seems like the playing field is being leveled now from the rich and people who weren't privy to this information. So thank you for being such a great asset to a community that didn't have this information. And you made it so simple. Thank you for the recordings. Thank you for the step-by-step instructions, things that we can go back and look at. So we do appreciate you. This has been an overall great experience. I definitely will recommend you to others.
All right, you guys, so let's work together. I do have a program that teaches you guys step by step how to accomplish this. So you have two different options here. You have do it yourself and you have done with you. So the do it yourself is where you get access to our on-demand course, okay? And so in the course, what happens is you get access to the 3 different trusts that I had spoke about earlier, which is the business trust, the family trust, and the tax-exempt nonprofit trust. So the way that the course is designed is you get access to 43 different video modules, and in those video modules, it teaches you step-by-step how to actually properly structure those trust templates, okay? So you're gonna watch the video, you're gonna set up the trust templates, and I'll show you in just a moment what one of those templates look like, okay? You get lifetime access to the course, and you also get access to the resources and ebooks that we have available. So for example, the books that I just mentioned in the program, you get access to all of them electronically. And then as far as the resources, we have a lot of resources available for you. For example, if you want to transfer your real estate, then we provide you with a quitclaim deed and we show you step by step how to actually fill it out and record it with the county recorder's office. If you want to transfer your vehicles, then we show you step by step how to do the bill of sale so that you're able to transfer the title. If you want to open up a bank account, then we show you exactly how to get your EINs, how to fill out your certificates, the process that you want to go through. We talk about banking procedures and operations. So you're able to get all of the resources that you need so that you can operate your trust efficiently and effectively, okay? We also have a community. So our community has over 2,500 people in it. And we also have a Facebook community and we have a Telegram chat. So that is where our community is, okay? So not everybody's on Facebook, not everybody's on Telegram, but if you have both, then you're able to get in contact with like-minded individuals, right? This is the whole point, right? We want to be connected with like-minded individuals that are doing the same thing that we are doing, right? They're protecting their assets, they're running businesses, they're setting up trust, right? They're building wealth. They have families that they want to protect, right? They're intentional about generational wealth, right? Those are the like-minded people that you want to do life with, right? And so those are the individuals that are in our community, and community is absolutely important to us, okay? So like I said, you do get lifetime access to the course. The course is only $997. Now, your second option is done with you, where we're able to do it together on Zoom. So you know how we are all together on Zoom right now? That is the same way that we would do it during the workshop, okay? So the workshop is 5 days long. It is Monday through Friday. It is from 11 in the morning to 2 p.m. in the afternoon, okay? And so on Mondays, we're gonna focus on the business trust. I'm gonna break down every single paragraph of the trust so that you can understand the contents of the trust, so that you can feel encouraged and empowered that you are now knowing, hey, I am able to operate as a trustee because I know every single thing that's inside of my trust. You don't know how many people that I've spoken to that they say, hey, I have a trust already, but I don't know how to operate it. I don't even know what's inside of it, right? And so we're going to set you up for success. Okay, so the first thing in you actually being able to operate as a trustee is you have to know what's inside of the trust. So that's why my team and I, we go ahead and we are intentional about breaking every single component of the trust so that you can understand it. And then after we break down all the paragraphs so that you can understand it, then we dive into Q&A so I can answer any and all questions that you have, right? You don't have to wait for your questions to be answered. I answer them on the spot, okay? So on Tuesday, we focus on the family trust so that you guys can understand how to establish that trust, and we dive into Q&A. On Wednesday, we focus on the tax exempt trust, and then I show you how to get your tax exempt EIN, and then after that, I show you how to go down the ordination process if you're going to operate it in that manner, okay? And so being in this type of environment is so important because you have to understand that there's other people on the Zoom calls. They're asking really good questions that you didn't know that you wanted to know. And so you end up learning more just by being in that environment, okay? On Thursday, we focus on OPM, okay? So we focus on other people's money, specifically the bank's money. So I'm going to start off by showing you how to get your EIN for banking purposes. And then I'm going to give you a list of banks. I'm also going to explain banking procedures, operations, and how to actually open up your bank account. Then we'll dive into how to have a board meeting so that you're able to carry out these tasks for the trust. And then I'm going to show you how to document how much you're going to fund the trust with. Remember, you have to fund that trust, okay? And then the last component is our educator is going to come in and teach you about business credit and funding so that you can get the funding that you need to acquire the assets, okay? How else do you think that you're able to retire or build wealth? You have to go and acquire assets. And so our funding manager is going to teach you step by step how to do that, okay? And then we dive into Q&A so that we can answer any and all questions that you have. And then the last day is Friday. So Friday, we focus on asset protection. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys, one, how to have an inventory of your assets so that you know which assets qualify to go inside of the trust and which don't. And then from there, I'm going to show you how to transfer your real estate into the trust. Then I'll show you how to transfer your vehicles into the trust. Then I'll show you how to transfer your businesses like those LLCs into the trust. And then our CPA is going to come and he's going to educate you step by step on how to file taxes for the trust, and he'll answer any and all tax questions that you have. So this is the workshop. You get lifetime access to the workshop, meaning that we have the workshops every 3 to 4 weeks, and you're able to join live every single time that we have a workshop. If you're unable to attend a workshop, we have them recorded. So we upload those recordings every single day after the workshop so that you don't miss anything. But it's super important for you to go and rewatch the recordings because retention is everything. The way that you're going to be empowered and encouraged to be a trustee is through retention, okay? So you get you get assistance, you get accountability, and you get support, okay? So the workshop is only $2,500, so you can go to our website, which is wealthytrustee.com, to be able to get into the program, okay? So our next workshop is August 3rd to the 7th, okay? That entire week. And so I'm about to show you what the course looks like, and then I'm also about to show you what a trust template looks like, okay?
I just wanted to say another thing too. So she's 100% because I've been to probate and it's not fun. It's not fun and it's very costly. So what she's charging is pennies. I mean, I actually paid $5,000 for probate. And it took a whole year and a half for us to sell our house. And my husband was the only son that she had. So the house, you would think it would automatically go to him, and it didn't. We still had to go to probate, spend $5,000, go to probate, and we had to pay the mortgage for a whole year and a half. So it was a mess, I'm telling you. And she's only asking, what, $2,500 for the program?
So let me show you what a trust template looks like. I will also show you what the program looks like. Hold on one second. Okay, so this is what a template looks like. So everything that you see in red is what you are going to be customizing for your organization, for your business, for your family, okay? So as I mentioned, I break down every single paragraph so that you guys can understand what's inside of the trust so that you have that confidence to know, yes, I can do this. Yes, I am able to operate a trust. Why? Because I know what's inside of it, right? So this is the actual program itself. Okay, this is what you get access to. So it doesn't matter if you want to do it yourself or if you want to do it with us during the workshop, you get lifetime access to the program, okay? So the first thing that you're going to do is after induction, you're going to go through the trust entity, okay? This is where you're going to learn what a trust is, and you're going to learn about the different parties involved, like the grantors, trustees, beneficiaries, successors, protectors, the benefits of the trust, different types of trust. Then you're going to learn about the tax-exempt nonprofit trust. Then you're going to learn about the family trust and how to set it up. Then you learn about the business trust and how to set it up. Then you learn about different tax strategies, right? How to operate tax-exempt, right? How to understand what distributable net income is and how to avoid tax evasion. That is not what we do here. And then we go into asset protection, where once again you learn how to open up these assets, right? Like the bank accounts, brokerage accounts, how to transfer your house, your car, your insurance policies, right? How to have board meetings, right? There's so many people that are operating entities and they've never had a meeting for their entity, right? And so we show you the right way of doing things in a standpoint of operation. Then we go into wealth creation, where you learn about OPM and how to build that business credit. You learn how to invest in the market through index funds, and you learn about being your own bank with the life insurance policies. You learn about the legacy crest, and then you get all your resources and your ebooks. So without further ado, I want to go ahead and open up the floor for Q&A so that I can answer any questions that you have based off of the webinar that I went over today. Does anybody have a question?
It was on the poster. It wasn't on the chat.
Hi, my name is Vera.
Hi, Vera.
How are you?
How are you?
I'm great. Do you have a phone number where we can call your office?
Yeah, absolutely. So the number, hold on, you know what? I'll put it on the screen. So just give me a moment, okay? Give me 2 seconds here to put it on the screen. Let's see.
Okay. The other question I had was, in terms of taxes, when you put your house, your cars, etc., into your trust for the protection, how are you taxed?
Okay, so it depends on how you transfer or convey the property. So if you transfer it as a gift, it doesn't trigger a taxable event. If you sell it, it triggers a taxable event. So we show you step by step how to gift it into your trust so it doesn't trigger a taxable event. We also have our CPA available to answer any and all tax-related questions.
So you're saying that when we transfer it in and we have to pay our taxes on our real estate every year, you'll show us how to be able to pay the taxes that where it's not going up so high. And the reason why I'm asking you this, many years ago, we had some property in a trust, and the difference in how much we paid on some property that was in a trust versus my grandmother paid for property that wasn't in a trust, that that was very expensive.
Okay, so Miss Vera, it sounds like you are describing what we call, what is it called? Give me 2 seconds. It's escaping my mind. It's called property tax exemption. So, or homestead exemption. So when your property taxes are less when you are reporting it as your homestead. And you get certain exemptions so that the cost is lower. So you have to do additional paperwork in order for your taxes not to go up. Okay, so I'm not sure what the process that your family took, but it's going to take an extra form for you to say, I want to maintain homestead exemption.
Okay, all right.
The
Thank
other, this is the husband, Emmett Fletcher. The other one situation was like if you have someone living in a home that's so-called family, but we gave them a lifetime right. Would like to put that in the trust, but I'm not so sure about the lifetime right for the person that we originally gave it to. Can that be changed?
Yeah, so you can add those provisions inside of the trust to give them the right to live there for their entire lifetime.
No, no, we already did that already. But what I'm saying is we may change our mind when we put it in the trust and it just be in the trust itself instead of the lifetime right.
Okay, so my question to you is the deed still in your name?
It's in a LLC.
Okay, so are you the owner of that LLC?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So you are still able to transfer into the trust and any provisions that you want to place in there dealing with the specific property, you're able to put it inside of the agreement.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I would just like to also put a plug in for Christina. We've looked at trust over the years several times, and honestly, for the information she's shared, that was probably clearer and more understandable from most of the sessions I've sat in or seminars I've attended. Her cost is very, very affordable.
Thank you so much, Miss Vera. I appreciate you saying that. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Well,
Yeah, so I always like to share this, but like the price, so the entire program plus the price of the program, all of this is originating from heaven. So it came from God. So God gave me the strict instructions to put this program together to share it with families so that they are not losing their inheritance and they're not losing their properties, okay? And even the price. So it has to be affordable so that everyone is able to have access to this information that is not readily available.
Neat.
So thank you so much
You
for
did a good job. That's my boy.
all right, next we have is it quail? I'm not sure how it's pronounced. Vardis?
Yes.
Oh, how do I pronounce it?
Quo Vardis.
Oh, Quo. Oh, that's beautiful. Okay. Thank you for correcting me. They mess up my name all the time too. So I appreciate when someone corrects me because now I know in the future.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for sharing this information tonight. I had a question when it comes to transferring your home over into your trust. So when you do that, how is the mortgage paid? Like if you have a lender on the deed with you, like I've looked up on the county website and my name is there, my husband's name, and then there's a mortgage company, and there's also something that says MERS, MERS. So if you transfer the deed to transfer the deed and you transfer it to the trust, how does that work with your mortgage and everything? Like, how does that work?
That's a really good question. So one, as long as the deed is in your name, and in the deed it says that you have the right to convey the property, then you're able to transfer the deed into the trust. Okay. That is the only way that the trust is able to protect the asset. Okay. Now the mortgage is going to remain intact. Okay. The mortgage is going to remain in your name or in your spouse's name. It's going to remain on your credit. Okay. So there's nothing that's going to happen with the mortgage. Now the financial responsibility of that mortgage is going to belong to the trust. So whenever the trust is able to cover those expenses, remember we said that that if it's your primary residence, you want to put it into your family trust, and then your family trust is going to be responsible for all of those expenses dealing with every single asset that the family trust owns, which is the mortgage, and anything dealing with that property. So maintenance, utilities, all of those things. Okay. So, yeah, so that's it. So now you're just going to continue to pay those mortgage payments, but ultimately you want to transition into the trust making those mortgage payments.
Okay, so you would continue making the payments until the trust can afford to do it on its own.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, we have Alonso.
Hi, how are you, Christine? Great presentation. Real awesome.
Thank you.
My question is, if you set up a trust and you have different entities, you have the house, you have the car, you have different things, do you have to put uh, all in one, or how is that how does that work? Do you have it separately, or do you have to set up different trusts for each entity? Um, how do you set it up? Uh,
Okay, that's a
roughly.
wonderful question. So what I want you to know is that you want to protect these assets, and so you want to separate them based on the asset class. Okay. So if you have a business, then you want that one business to go into a business trust. You don't want to put your house where you live in into the same trust that you have a business, or into the business trust, because the house that you live in has nothing to do with business. So you want to separate the assets based on the usage, okay? So is it for business use? Is it for personal use? Or is it for nonprofit endeavors? So with the three trusts that we're talking about, that is how you would separate it. Now, you also want to think about liability. You have high liability assets and you have low liability assets. So for example, in your family trust, right, you are definitely going to put your house there. You can definitely put some stocks, some bonds, some crypto, your insurance policies. Those are all low liability assets. But one high liability asset that a lot of people don't think about is the vehicle that's in the streets every single day that has the opportunity or the chance of getting into a car accident, right? And so you don't want a high liability asset like a vehicle inside of a trust that has your house, or has $250,000 in cash, or has an insurance policy, right? You want to be able to separate those assets also by liability. Does that make
So yeah, so actually you do it by category, based on value, based on whatever the case may be. But it's best to do it that way, other than having it all in one place.
Correct. You do not want to do that. Please do
Okay.
not put all of your assets in one trust. That is just like putting all of your eggs in one basket. What if the basket falls? Then all of your
Mm.
eggs are done, right? So that's why inside of the program, we provide you with a worksheet so that you can take an inventory of your assets, so that you can decide, well, which assets qualify to go inside of the trust, and then where are they going to go? Which trust are they going to go? So we help you navigate through that so that you can decide specifically where to position those assets within your structure.
Great. Okay, one last question. Now the where you set up your trust fund. I mean, I heard about there's different states have different regulations, and then the state of, I think it's Wyoming or something like that. Everybody goes over there because it's cheaper, it's less. So the institution where you set it up and the state, that matters too as well. right? It's very important, very crucial.
Yeah, so it depends on the type of trust, okay? So if you have a statutory trust, then it's very important because you're limited to that one state, okay? So with a statutory trust, you can only choose one state and you can only operate in that one state that you choose. Okay, so meaning that you can't set up a trust in Wyoming, but then operate in Texas. Okay, now there's a different type of trust, which is the trust that we use. It's a non-statutory, so there are no state statutes and codes inside of there, so you're not limited. So that means that you can set up a trust in Texas and you can use it in Georgia. Okay, so that's one component. The second component is the domicile. You have to choose a domicile for the trust, which is where you're going to establish or set up the trust. Okay, so that's what you're describing, which is what state. Okay, now when you are deciding what state, typically people are going to choose the state where they operate. Now, if you are concerned with getting sued, then just know that whatever state that you choose, if your trust is sued, that court case needs to be carried out in the domiciled state. So that's why people are choosing Wyoming and Delaware and Nevada and South Dakota. Why? Because they're favorable laws for entities dealing with litigation. So that is what you're describing. And so once again, I always encourage people to do their due diligence when they are choosing their domicile.
Great, great, great. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. This is awesome. Awesome presentation.
You're so
Very
welcome,
good job.
Mr. Alfonso. Thank you for
Okay,
being
take care.
here.
All right, bye-bye.
All right, bye. All right, next we have Miss Deborah.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. How are you?
I am doing great. I just need to know, I don't know what option to choose here. We inherited a trust. It was a revocable trust that my mom left for my siblings and my nieces and I. Everyone has a percentage. And the trust is now only consisting of the property, which is the family home. And what I want to do is protect the trust and set it up as a family bank. So I'm not sure which one of these programs to sign up for. And if I do sign up for one of the programs, is this program going to help me to do that?
That's a wonderful question. So both inside of the program as well as during the workshops, and we also have master classes outside of the workshops. Those are strategies that you learn, right? So you learn about banking, you learn about funding, you learn about the life insurance policy. So we have educators that come in. Okay, so myself, I am licensed and I help people set up the be your own bank strategy. Okay, so that means that you're going to set up the life insurance policies and you're going to set up the bank accounts and you're able to move money in and out of the policy so that you can grow that money for the trust. Okay, so it sounds like that's what you're describing. And you do learn that inside of the program. So you can either decide to do it yourself and watch the videos that we have inside of the course, or you can decide to attend our workshops where our educators come in and teach you live.
Oh, so that's what the full program, if I do that, I'm going to be with educators who are going to walk me through the process as I'm learning.
That is correct. So I
Okay.
am just one of the educators. There are several different educators inside of the program. So they teach about the life insurance, funding, taxes, things of that nature.
Okay, I'm familiar with it. I just want to be able to convey this to my siblings because I told them they wanted to sell the house. I said, no, let's use it and set it up as a family bank. And every month, right now we have someone in the house who's renting one floor, and the house needs renovation. So all of that is coming into play as we go forward and setting up. So that would be an irrevocable trust, or we still keep the revocable trust?
Well, okay, so who is the grantor?
My sister.
Are you sure?
I believe so. I'm
So,
gonna have to look at it again.
yeah, so I don't think so the grantor is the person who created the trust. Did your sister create the trust?
Oh, well, then that would be my mother, who is no
Okay,
longer here.
correct. So what I'm trying to explain to you is that
Mhm.
if the grantor has transitioned, the trust becomes irrevocable.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes, ma'am, you're here to learn, so I'm here to provide you with
First time I'm
information.
hearing that.
Yeah. So the reason why the trust becomes irrevocable is because the grantor can no longer make any changes because they are no longer living.
You're the first person that told me that. I've spoken to two others who claim to be attorneys that does this, and they told me that it can be changed. Wow, interesting. Okay, I'm going to we're going to sign up for. I think I'm going to sign up for the course where someone can work with my sister and I, who's the trustee, and that way we can learn and do what needs to be done.
That sounds wonderful.
Thank you.
So you definitely are able to do that with your trust. Your trust already has an asset, which is that real estate.
Yeah.
So you are able to grow the wealth that's inside of that trust.
I
So
just want to protect it. I just really
yeah.
want to protect it the right way, because I live in one of those states that's just a little crazy.
Ah,
New York City.
yes, yes, yes.
All right, thank you.
You're so welcome. So there's a question in the chat that says, my daughter's going to college in September. Will it lower the cost if I transfer the house into the trust? I don't understand the connection with that question. So is there a strategy to lower the cost of college by creating the trust? No. So your college expenses are your college expenses, right? So the trust is able to cover those college expenses, but if the college that you choose is charging $20,000, then that's what you have to pay. Now, if you're talking about other things like scholarships and financial aid, that is outside of the trust, okay? But you can utilize the trust with the life insurance policies to provide for college education and expenses. So, what are some of the ways to fund a trust? So there is many different ways to fund a trust, right? The first thing that you want to do is you want to open up a bank account for that trust and you want to deposit trust funds in there, okay? The second thing that you want to do is you are able to transfer any form of an asset that has intrinsic value. So that could be real estate, that could be a Rolex watch, that could be precious metal like silver and gold. That could be pretty much anything that you can think of that has intrinsic value. So next we have, I forgot already. Is it quail? Hey, did I forget already?
It's okay. It's Quove artist.
Quo.
Quove, yes.
That's not hard. That is not hard at all. I promise.
I had another question. So
Yes,
I
ma'am.
set up irrevocable and a revocable trust. Like, well, I didn't set it up. I just went onto the IRS website and got EINs for them, but that's like where I stopped, right? So, but I made the grantor and the trustee the same on each one. And you were just saying, like, for the irrevocable, it can't be the same, right?
Correct.
So now that I've done that, is there like, do I have to go back on the IRS website to like correct that? Is that
Yes, you do. So there's a form, it's called an 8822B, and that's the form that you would fill out in order to correct what you've done.
okay? Thank you.
You're welcome, Sunshine. All right, next we have Sean, and then if there's no other questions, then I will let you guys go. I appreciate you staying with me for 2.5 hours. You guys are rock stars. Hey, Sean.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, hey.
I own I flip houses basically. So
All right, both.
I have like one coming up right now, and I might make like 75K on it. I'm trying to see if I did the life insurance policy or use that money to put into the trust and make a life insurance policy,
how fast could you pull that money back out of the IUL to use it
Oh,
for different?
that's a wonderful question. So it all depends on the way that we structure it. So if you want to pull it out quickly, some carriers will let you pull it out in 15 to 30 days, like as soon as that money clears, because you know it doesn't clear right away, right? So depending on the carrier, you can pull it out as early as 15 to 30 days. So it depends on the way that it's structured. That's the answer.
Okay, okay. And this is a different subject, but it's the same subject. But
Yes, sir.
my father is a little older. He's about 79 right now. So we're starting to build a trust, I'm taking the class because I want to do the trust. So
Okay.
I'm trying to figure out like exactly which way to do it. And I guess I'm saying this, it ain't even really a question. It's just thank you. I guess I'm going to go in and get the course and, move forward. But yeah, I guess you didn't answer a lot of questions. So it's just more I'm going to move forward. So, thank you.
You are so welcome, Mr. Sean, and you brought up a really good point. So one, I want to commend you for what you are doing because you are the generational curse breaker in your family. You are the person that's right there in the middle that you have to get all the family affairs in order for the older generation that hasn't done it. And then you have to get all of the affairs in order for the younger generation that comes after you, like your children. So you are the person that's going to break those chains, and you're the person that's going to establish the legacy. So that's why I am telling you that we are building a community of like-minded individuals because we are all the same. I'm also the same. My father is 73 years old. I wasn't born into a trust organization. I had to get his affairs in order. And I have 3 children. I have to get their affairs in order. So me and you are the same, where we're right there in the middle and we're like, okay, you know what? Let me be the person to set this up for the family. Let me be the person that's going to take that leap of faith and sacrifice and do everything that I need to do so everything is protected for the generation that came before us and the generation that's coming after us. So
it's the God's call. You said God told you to do it. It's God. So thank you.
it's
Like,
fine. Yes.
there you go.
And everyone that comes into this program is divinely led into this program. I did not look for you. You were divinely led by the Lord. And this is just to prepare for a wealth transfer. This is just to prepare for how you're going to transfer your assets and how you're going to leave that legacy. So it's powerful because you're changing the trajectory of your kids, right? Your whole entire bloodline. You're doing the work. This is
Yeah.
sacrifice that you're taking. It is a sacrifice. One, it's a sacrifice for money. It is a sacrifice for time. It is a sacrifice for you putting an entire structure together. You sacrificing.
Yeah.
So I'm proud of you.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome, Sean. All right, and then we have Miss Vera, and then we are going to adjourn our webinar for this evening. Hey, Miss Vera.
Okay, thank you. I have another question. So
Yes,
you
ma'am.
just said something that's on my mind. So when you speak about the uber wealthy people, your clients, and they have large sums of money, and they talk about how they protect themselves in the sense of not having to pay taxes on all this money. And I thinking that when we join, that there will be sessions how to pay at least the amount of money in taxes for the uber wealthy people.
So, Miss Vera, we do have a CPA that is a part of the program. And so our CPA teaches you everything that the CPA is going to answer all of your tax questions. Every single person has a different tax situation. So they work with you on a one-on-one basis, but the general education that we provide is education dealing with trust taxes, meaning that a trust has to file a 1041. Our CPA educator will hold your hand and will teach you step by step how to do that, and will educate you on other forms of taxes. So this is one of our educators in the program where whatever it is that you want to learn about tax strategies, you will work with the CPA on that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
you did a great job. Thank you for your information.
Thank you. You're so welcome. God bless you. And God bless everyone that is on the call. I hope that you guys take action on the information that I shared with you tonight, because a lot of people, they're like, yeah, I've been knowing about trust for 5 years, but they've been sitting on the fence. And this is not that type of thing, right? You want to be able to take action. You want to be able to implement, because tomorrow is not promised. Okay. My mom died at 61 years old, and I guarantee you that she did not know that she was going to die. I did not know that she was going to die. Okay. I lost the most important person in my entire life, and I was in pieces. So I would tell you that tomorrow is not promised. So please go ahead and get your affairs in order as soon as possible. Okay. And that's it, you guys. So you guys can go to wealthytrustee.com. We hope to welcome you into the community. We have master classes every single week. So we have an educator in our program that he does the crypto training. You guys are familiar with him. His name is Ken. We have educators that are doing master classes on real estate. So our next master class is actually going to be on Tuesday at 6 p.m. So if you get in now, then you can get into our master class that is coming up on Tuesday. We also have random Q&A sessions where you can just come in and I can answer any and all questions. We have a lot of support inside of the program. So you can see that I have my assistant here. We have a program director. Her name is Billy, and she will answer any and all questions, and she's there to support you. You can call us at any time. We work 9 to 5. And so our team will be able to answer and support and guide. And that's what we're here for. We're here to hold you accountable so that you can actually do what you're supposed to do, right? Which is set up your trust, which is fund your trust, right? Which is transfer your assets, right? We don't want you to make the mistakes that common people make, right? And this because of misguidance, because they're getting advice from people that don't even have trust, okay? So with that being said, I absolutely love you guys. Thank you for being with me for 2.5 hours. And if you have any questions, my team will be able to answer. So we'll be here for like another couple of minutes, and then we hope to welcome you into the community. Bye everyone. Have a good night.
You too.
Thank you so much.
Good night. Thank